Welcome into K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway. Hopefully you've all already enjoyed the preview show. DY and I recorded that yesterday. That'd be Wednesday. So you still get it on the normal timeline ahead of a game day. It's just the game is on a Friday this week because K-State is facing Arizona. And with K-State facing Arizona, we get to talk about how bad this football team is playing right now. Has not been good. I want you to know this, Drew. K-State, if they lose on Friday, they would be 3-6 in their last 9 games. Over the last, over the last 20 years, there have been 6 instances. Actually, I think 7, but one of them they cross over in the same seasons that would be mentioned. So it was like, I'm not going to throw it on there. But there have been 6-7 instances in the last 20 years where K-State has had a 9-game stretch where they have gone 3-6. That's been their worst in a 9-game stretch over the last 20 years. Do you want to take any guesses as to the teams that are involved in those numbers?
Well, 2015 was one because we talked about that season a lot.
They lost 6 straight and then won 3 to get to 3-6. So,
I believe that 2009, I think, was one of those.
Surprisingly, 2009. Well, that would be one of the weird instances where like the carryover from 08 into I don't actually 09 is not on there.
I'll say 2006 is probably somewhere in this.
You're getting warmer there. You picked the wrong Prince season though. They were actually okay in there. You'd be looking for 07 and 08. Others that would be in this mix, 2018, Bills' final season, the last 9 games of that year. The last 9 games of 2010, you might be surprised. But they started the season 4-0, and then the loss to Nebraska, win against KU, back-to-back losses, win against Texas, back-to-back losses. Your favorite North Texas game they won, and then the loss to Syracuse.
That is wild. That season had a 3-9 or a 3-6 match.
They went 7-6, and you feel like it was a good season. And like we look back on it, and we enjoy thinking of it. And then 2005, Bills' final season, which would make sense. So that's the kind of group that this K-State team is a game away from being in the mix with. How has this happened? How is this team specifically being talked about with teams that we go and look at, and you can explain what happened? Like 2018, that was not a good football team.
No,
they didn't have a quarterback, mainly because the quarterback that they did have, they just mentally beaten down so much. 2015 definitely didn't have a quarterback. They also didn't have a lot of other things on that team. 2010, a little more fluky just because of the nature of the schedule, I would say. But then we know 08, 07, those teams were terrible, and 2005 was a bad football team. So how does this team that is the most talented by far out of those teams, how are they 1 game away from joining that really, really bad group?
I think that we've just hit on the things that if you don't do well in a football game, you're going to lose. And in the last 8 games, K-State hasn't really gotten a lot of turnovers. They haven't gotten off the field, and they've turned the ball over a lot. I mean, those are 3 things that, like, I always joke about, like, keys to victory, and like one of them is always taking care of the ball and forcing turnovers. K-State hasn't done either of those things well. And why, like, I did pick and preview for this week, so blame me if K-State loses, because we felt like we needed a new blood and pick and preview to see if we could spark a win. But like the first key that I had was win the turnover battle. K-State hasn't done it the last 3 games. I think that they were even in the Rate Bowl, if I remember correctly. They didn't win the turnover battle because I'm including the Avery safety against Iowa State in the last game of the regular season last year. They didn't win the turnover battle.
Well, did they even force a turnover at all in the game against Iowa State?
Probably not. So it was 2-0. They split in Ireland. They split against North Dakota. I'm trying to think back to some more games from last year at the end. Like they
They
haven't won.
beat Cincinnati, but they didn't beat Houston, as we know. They didn't beat Arizona State.
They didn't win the turnover battle against Arizona State or Houston, and I don't think that they won it against Cincinnati because I think they split.
I don't know. I did they turn the ball over in the game against Cincinnati?
I think that they split because of 0-0.
No, because remember, you're forgetting Brendan Mott almost had a pick six, Drew.
Okay, so
how dare you?
So they've won a turnover battle once in their last.
And that's to your credit. They had one turnover forced in that game against Cincinnati, and it's a fluke play where your defensive end had an interception.
Yeah, so they've won the turnover battle once in their last 8 games, and you know what's the outlier in the last 8 games?
Wins.
Well, I was gonna say that's the game that they destroyed the team that they were playing.
Yeah.
Like they haven't done it. They haven't really came close to doing it lately. Like a split 2-2, but one of Iowa State's turnovers wasn't really forced. Well, and like the K-State turnover, one of them wasn't really forced with the muff, but like they just aren't creating turnovers or turning the ball over too much. They aren't getting off the field. Like those are 3 things that like if you don't do, you're not going to win many games. And I think that if you really went back and probably if we tracked when K-State has gone 3-6 in their last 9 games, those are probably all things that pop up. Like, oh, you're not getting off the field on 3rd or 4th down. Oh, you're turning the ball over too much. Oh, you're not creating turnovers. That is just kind of how it goes. If you want to get real dark, I did the research for Pick and Preview because 2 of the things I think that you'll enjoy, and I hope that other people enjoy on like the what K-State needs to learn from this game. One of them was just get back in the win column. Nobody feels sorry for you anymore. The Ireland game was 3 weeks ago. You look like crap in your 2 home games.
Well, and Iowa State hasn't felt any effects of that.
No, Iowa State hasn't felt any effects from it. You've already kind of started this week by saying that, like, yeah, it's a short week. It's going to be hot in Arizona. We know this. We knew this before the season started. Nobody feels bad for you if you lose this game. And then the other one was like, what do you want this season to be? Did you know before I told you guys in the KSO chat that the last time that K-State started 1-3 in a season was 1989?
No, but I could have guessed it because I went back looking for some other data that would show me the last time that K-State, their first 2 home games of the season, were decided by like single digits and that they didn't, come out with wins in both of them or something like. And I kept going back and I couldn't find it. So I had some inkling that like the starts hadn't been that bad, but it like that's scary territory to be in too, that we're going back in time and just resetting this thing to when they sucked and Bill had to come save everybody.
That is maybe the most scary stat, is that they are 1 game away from being tied with where the 1989 team was 4 games then. Yeah. So like I said, like, what do you want this season to be? Do you just want to give up and be the worst team since 1989 record-wise through 4 games, or do you want to stand up and have some fight? Because right now they haven't shown a lot of fight. And we're going to get into some comments that an Arizona player made. Not exactly wrong, but probably the right message, probably the wrong guy to say.
Well, yeah, so let's get into it. Because it is Arizona week, there is one other storyline that I wasn't even really interested in talking about because I didn't think it mattered much because I think he's only caught 2 passes all year. But Trey Spivey got to speak to the media in Tucson this week and was asked some K-State questions. So the one that made the rounds was him discussing K-State's offense and that, they play off of energy, and when things go bad, they hang their heads and things start to snowball. And that's kind of what everybody ran with. My first question, Drew, and we'll play the comments in a second. Is he wrong, though?
I don't think that he's wrong, but he is/was part of the problem last year.
But is that a culture thing? A guy that was barely on the field, like he's just going to follow the lead of his superiors on the team?
You could say that is probably a lot of the problem. I just take offense to it because, like, if you were there, you saw this, but you didn't really do anything to fix it, and you didn't know the playbook well enough to play, you should probably not say something that could probably – I guarantee that the Arizona coaches probably a little pissed off that he said that.
Well, yeah, I mean, K-State, they had no reason but to mope and hang their heads this week. Now, mate, I don't know if anything is going to get this team off their butts and fired up, but I guess you can hope that this was bulletin board material. Here are the 3 specific answers Trey Spivey gave that related to K-State, including talking about how he did some growing up at K-State, at least in terms of, I guess, figuring out how to show up. Reading the playbook, Drew seems to think wasn't a priority there, but here is Trey Spivey.
I think that he's a fast thinker. Like, he's good on his feet. He makes good decisions. I believe that he's also a good leader. He takes control of offense when he needs to, and he just instills confidence in the rest of the players. So I think that that's one thing to always keep in mind about him. When we're going against him is just knowing that he's smart on the field. He has a really good sense of what's happening on the field. He's a good player. Honestly, I look back at those days and I smile because I feel like I grew a lot there, and I've grown a lot here too. But just coming from high school, going straight into a program like Kansas State, they pride themselves on hard work and responsibility. So I had a lot to learn, just making it to places on time, even without having a car, making sure I had a ride. It was just being early. I had to really grow up at Kansas State, so I think that was huge for me. It was just setting, kind of gave me a formula to how to become a man, and I think that me coming to Arizona has helped me grow and expand off that. I think one of the biggest factors with that offense is they play off energy. When the sideline was quiet over there, heads would go down, and it felt like we were beating ourselves up at certain points in the game. They got once you get in your head, it started a snowball effect. So I think that when the energy was super high and, each situation they're able to build off of, I think that's what created such an explosive offense over there. And you had a lot of players, you had a lot of playmakers, super good players that could play at different positions and move around.
So that first question he was answering about Avery Johnson and things there. Look, I don't think he's wrong on what he said, but like you're saying, right message, wrong messenger, probably, where you were a part of that offense and people wanted to see you play. There were obviously traits that probably could have gotten you on the field last year, and for some reason it wasn't until later in the year, after 2 horrendous losses, that Trey Spivey was getting the opportunities. And, then in that Iowa State game specifically, I think there was a moment or two where people noticed, that something was screwed up there, and it involved Spivey. So I think there can be 2 things here. That, yes, if you're K-State, you're going to use this as motivation and be like, hey, don't speak on it like you were a part of it or whatever. And he took some ownership there because he did use a we type of term.
Yeah, his back end of the answer, it kind of felt like he realized that he's like, oh crap, I probably shouldn't say this, and then kind of backtracked a little bit.
Yeah.
But the first initial statement was probably right message, wrong messenger.
But given the current circumstances, I look at this and go that's just a really alarming thing, because I don't think those other teams let it snowball on them. If you go back, last year obviously hasn't, because that's what he's talking about. This year certainly looks like this team has done it to some extent, although the issue is that it's not really the offense this year that's letting things snowball. They're going out there with adversity basically every drive, and toughest soldiers getting the hardest battles type of thing.
The offense hasn't let things snowball this year because they haven't really had a chance to. I mean,
because they answered with a 65-yard bomb when they went down 10 points to immediately get back in the game with still almost 7 minutes to play, and their defense never gave them the ball back.
I mean, we go back to from literally drive 1, K-State's offense this year has had adversity. They didn't have Dylan Edwards on drive 1, play 1 from scrimmage. They were also backed up. So they've had adversity pretty much the whole season so far, outside of the opening drives of North Dakota and Army. There hasn't really been a ton of adversity thrown their way. But yeah, it's really been the defense. And that's where something just has to happen, and somebody needs to grow up and I don't want to say just yell at everybody, but you can't be the person that lets everybody hang their heads.
Yeah, and I think that's where we get into the Avery Johnson conversation. There's been some of it this week about like his personality. And he's just a guy that like, I haven't seen that from him to be the rah, rah, come get on my back. And it doesn't have to be corny rah, rah. You know, it doesn't have to be like fake and whatever, but like, you know, get your guys ticked off a little bit and want to come follow along with you, as opposed to like, I get it. It's just not in his nature and you can't force guys to be like this, but it is hard when you see the offense just sitting on the sidelines and Avery Johnson is just over there kind of off by himself and just sitting on the bench and waiting to get the ball back. He doesn't need to be out there trying to cheerlead the defense on. Like, they need to figure their crap out on their own. They just need to be men about it. But at least, you know, can you get the offense fired up? Can you look a little bit more engaged? And everybody does it in their own way. Like, I don't want this to be like a referendum on Avery Johnson, but the optics of it and the fact that this team does need somebody to step up and be like that. And, you know, earlier in the week, was it Braden Lofton that said that Avery, Toby, and Damian Ilalio were the three guys that kind of stepped up and voiced a little bit more? That's probably a good step, but like, this team clearly needs it in game to come from players, because the coaches are scared to give it to them because they think if they do, these guys are going to shut down and then you have zero chance of salvaging the season. You need it to be from one of the players, and Avery's really the best guy because he is the dude on this team. He's the guy that's playing the best out of a lot of people on this team, and he's your quarterback. He's got to be your voice.
And that's where you kind of get into being a player-led program. A lot of the best ones are. Like, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with it, but you also have to have the right guys that really want to show the leadership and make sure that when things aren't going well, hey, follow me. Like, we can.
Yeah, you think like David Beatty's KU teams could be a player-led program? No, like those guys, you don't get the rope to be your own person there.
But also, if you're a coach-led program, there's also some problems. Like, a player-led program is the way to do it, but you have to have the right guys. I'll ask you a question.
Oh, I love it. I love when you ask me questions.
We don't really have this on our like show outline, but we got a little bit of information yesterday from Chris Kleiman's radio show that Lincoln Cure will travel and be available for the first time all season. Kind of sounds like Ryan Davis is going to be available if you really kind of read between the lines on what has been said. What are your expectations for both guys?
Well, I mean, the question would be, do I think that they are going to just take the training wheels off immediately for Lincoln Cure? Because I think you kind of need to. Like, again, I've been banging he's got talent drum more than anybody else has on this team, that you probably need to get him involved rather quickly. So, like, I think it needs to be early that you see him get out there. I mean, I'll be if he is truly available and he is healthy to be out there. If Lincoln Cure doesn't catch the ball 3 times on Friday, I think you're doing something wrong if you're K-State.
So I have another question for you to kind of build
also, I think Ryan Davis comes out and looks phenomenal. So I think Ryan Davis announces his presence back in his home state. He and Toby both have 2 sacks on the night.
Oh, wow. You're really going for it. I like
that's the positive side of me. I did pick K-State to lose by 14 yesterday. So,
so with that, and we know Jaron Bradley out for at least a few weeks. Do you think that there's going to be some sort of split between like Lincoln Cure and Adonis Moise and maybe like JD Davis for that third wide receiver spot? Or do you think that Cure takes more snaps as a tight end?
Well, so this would be the question mark on how do they trust the usage and his youth here. Like, do they feel like you've been banged up, you got here late? Are we going to be able to, you know, we've been prepping you as a tight end, and they've certainly been prepping him to also play a little bit of receiver because Kleiman had talked about that. But like, is game one when he gets out there, is this when they're going to throw it on him in this type of circumstance? That's what would make me question it. So if things are going well and he assimilates pretty quickly and he has a grasp of what he needs to do, I bet it would become more as a receiver. But I'm almost thinking, because I'm just skeptical, I think we get more of the training wheel scenario and we see it more as a tight end. And I mean, let me tell you, it will be unforgivable if he has the least or the third least amount of snaps, or the second least amount of snaps out of the tight ends in this game. He needs to be above, halfway with this crew.
I think that we see him more as a big receiver because you're missing that from Jaron Bradley.
I hope we do. I'm not sure.
You don't really get that if you put Jace Brown outside. I think that he's probably better off as a slot receiver. You have another true freshman as your number 4 player in snaps right now in Adonis Moise. I think that you kind of might see them, and this is just pure speculation. I think that you might see Cure and Moise kind of split the wide receiver 3 snaps.
We'll see. It's probably the thing to most watch out for in this game.
At this point, what do you have to lose, really?
Nothing, especially in this game. Like, if you're trying to, hey, here's our goal, we can still achieve it. This game means nothing for it. This game is purely for getting things figured out, getting on track, and making the fans re-engage and buy back in. But it really has zero impact on what your season will be defined as. If this team comes out of this game, win or lose, and then finishes 7-1 in their last 8 games, they will be 7-2 in Big 12 play, and they'll be right in the mix of the tiebreaker to play in Arlington. And then we'll just look back and we'll laugh and we'll forget about the trash we saw to start the season. So this game doesn't matter big picture. It would just reinforce or maybe make you start to question and think, maybe it could get better moving forward. We'll see.
And I do think that K-State is starting to get healthier. I mean, we talked about Davis and Cure from what we heard from Kleiman on the radio yesterday, and it sounds like Dylan Edwards probably closer to 50-50. So is K-State back?
Oh, well, great way to end it. Good question. Find out tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central Time on Fox. I'll be there. DY will be there. DY's already there. That man left at 6 in the morning on a Thursday for Tucson, Arizona. I said, nah, I'm going to still fly out Friday morning. So if I don't make it, oh no.
Well, it's only going to be 95 there. So.
Well, yeah, somebody on the board, an Arizonian, said on there, though, that the sun will be down by that point or close to it, and then it'll cool off quick.
Well, yeah, because this is legally, this is the earliest time that this game could be played, 8 o'clock Central.
Which is weird then, because the guys are out there warming up 2 hours before, which would then, whatever. But we talked about this with flight crews and timing out. I don't really get people's time policies. They don't take that next step. Really, at the end of the day, it's like a lot of safety measures where they're just kind of there to try and make you feel better, but in reality, they're not going to do anything. I've talked to you about this on flights, Drew.
Yes.
They give you this whole rundown. It's like, what are the chances that you would actually need that because you're still alive if something goes bad with the plane? Not to put any bad thoughts in people's heads about flying, but
when this game came out initially and said that it was going to be on a Friday night again, there was part of me that thought that this was going to be like a 9:30 Central, and Fox was going to do a doubleheader on a Friday night.
Thank goodness they're not. 8 o'clock, semi-normal time, just different day. So not same bat time, same bat channel. We'll get out of here. We'll talk again to y'all tomorrow night after the Cats meet up down in Arizona. K-State will have beautiful looking helmets. Arizona going with some ugly A that their fans act like is God's gift to earth. Hey, I'm sorry. You can wear ugly throwback stuff if it's awesome ugly. That A is not awesome ugly. It's just flat ugly. So can't wait to see it in person tomorrow night. K-State, Arizona. We'll talk about it right here after the game ends on KSO.